She was just a 16-year-old black girl buying a gift for her mom until a mall cop handcuffed her for looking suspicious. But one phone call changed everything because her dad wasn't just any dad. He was the police commissioner. What happened next ended a career and sparked a citywide reckoning. It was supposed to be a simple, peaceful Saturday afternoon. Aaliyah had been looking forward to this day all week. Her mother's birthday was coming up, and she had saved up enough pocket money to buy her the perfect gift. Carefully budgeting every cent, she had mapped out which stores to visit in the downtown mall. She wanted to surprise her mom with a delicate silver bracelet, something her mom had admired months ago, but never bought for herself. Aaliyah was a smart, kind-hearted 16-year-old. Her teachers loved her, her classmates admired her, and her father always told her she carried herself with the grace of a leader. But today, none of that mattered. Today, all that mattered to one man was the color of her skin. The moment she walked into the mall, she noticed a pair of watchful eyes following her. She tried to shake off the feeling, telling herself she was probably just imagining it. But as she browsed through the first store, then the second, the same tall man with a stiff posture and a walkie-talkie clipped to his belt appeared nearby every time. His uniform, badge, and the words "Mall Security" stamped on his chest made it clear this was no ordinary shopper. Officer Tom had been working security at the mall for years. People who worked there knew he had a particular habit, a habit of tailing black teenagers. Tom thought he was being subtle, but most people could see his patterns. Today was no different. In his mind, Aaliyah fit the profile he had invented. Young, black, shopping alone. His bias whispered to him, she must be up to something. Aaliyah picked up a bracelet and turned it in her hand, smiling softly. She imagined her mother's face when she would unwrap it. It was perfect. As she moved toward the cashier, Officer Tom stepped in front of her, blocking her path. "Let me see your bag," he barked. Startled, Aaliyah looked up. "Excuse me?" she said, her voice trembling slightly. "Your bag. Show me what's inside. I saw you acting suspiciously." His voice carried loudly, drawing the attention of nearby shoppers. Some stopped to watch. Others simply turned away, pretending not to see. Aaliyah's heart pounded in her chest. "Sir, I haven't done anything wrong. I was just shopping." But Tom didn't care. He was already reaching for her arm. "People like you always say that. Show me your bag or I'll have to detain you." "People like me?" she whispered, the sting of those words settling in her chest like a weight. "I said, give me your bag," Tom shouted, grabbing her wrist roughly and pulling the bag from her shoulder. The sudden aggression made her stumble. Gasps echoed around them as a small crowd began to gather. "I didn't take anything," she cried out, panic rising in her throat. "I don't need to explain myself to you," he sneered. "Let's see what you've stuffed in here." He unzipped the bag, roughly turning it upside down, letting its contents spill onto the floor. Out tumbled a small wallet, some lip gloss, a few school books, a phone charger, and a crumpled list titled "Mom's Birthday Gifts." No stolen items, nothing out of place, just the belongings of an innocent teenager. But Tom wasn't finished. He yanked out a pair of handcuffs from his belt and clipped them tightly around her wrists. "You're coming with me until we sort this out," he said coldly. Aaliyah's eyes welled with tears, her face burning with humiliation as people whispered around her. Some recorded on their phones. Others just watched, silent and afraid to intervene. "Please," she pleaded, "just let me call my dad." "Call whoever you want, kid. It won't change anything. People like you always think you can talk your way out." The words sliced through her like a blade. With trembling fingers, she pulled out her phone and dialed the number she knew by heart. "Daddy?
Please, I need you. I'm at the mall. A security officer, he handcuffed me. He says I stole something. Please come." Her voice cracked, tears falling freely now. On the other end of the line, her dad's calm but firm voice responded, "Stay where you are, sweetheart. I'm on my way." Tom rolled his eyes. "This won't take long. We've got plenty of time to wait for Daddy." He thought he was in control. He thought he had caught another troublemaker. But in less than 15 minutes, everything would change. Outside the mall, a sleek black luxury car pulled up quickly to the entrance. Mall officers stood straighter, adjusting their uniforms when they saw who stepped out. The man wore a crisp navy blue suit, polished shoes, and carried an air of authority that instantly commanded attention. Tom's radio crackled as one of his colleagues whispered urgently, "Tom, that's Police Commissioner Daniels." Tom's stomach dropped. In that instant, the weight of what he had done began to sink in. He hadn't just harassed some random teenager, he had handcuffed the daughter of the city's most powerful law enforcement officer. And the commissioner was walking straight towards him.
The mall seemed to freeze as Police Commissioner Daniels strode through the entrance. His calm, measured steps echoed against the polished floors, but his eyes burned with a fire that silenced even the loudest whispers. Shoppers parted instinctively, stepping aside as though they could sense the storm he carried with him. Tom, the mall security officer, stood frozen in place, his grip still tight on Aaliyah's arm. His throat went dry. His radio buzzed again. "Tom, you need to let her go, right now." But the words came too late. Commissioner Daniels stopped just a few feet in front of Tom and his daughter. He looked first at Aaliyah, her wrists red from the too tight handcuffs, her eyes wide with fear and tears. It was the kind of look a father never forgets. Pain, humiliation, betrayal by the system that was supposed to protect her. He turned to Tom, his voice low but sharp as a blade. "Explain to me what you think you're doing." Tom swallowed hard. "Sir, I thought she was shoplifting. She was acting suspiciously. I followed procedure." His words tumbled over each other, desperate and panicked. "Suspicious how?" the commissioner pressed, his voice dangerously calm. "She was moving in and out of stores, looking around nervously. She was alone. She looked like she didn't belong." Silence fell between them. That one sentence hung in the air, thick with the weight of its unspoken prejudice. Aaliyah's voice trembled as she spoke. "Dad, I didn't do anything. I just wanted to buy Mom a gift." Commissioner Daniels' jaw tightened. He gently removed the handcuffs from his daughter's wrists and handed them back to Tom. "She didn't steal anything. She wasn't even accused by any store. Yet you chose to detain her publicly. You humiliated her." His words cut through the air like a courtroom verdict. Tom stammered, I didn't know she was your daughter." The commissioner's eyes narrowed, his voice rising just enough to send a chill through the onlookers. "Would it have mattered? Would you have treated her differently if she was someone else's daughter? If she was just another black kid?" Tom's mouth opened, but no words came out. He knew the answer. Everyone watching knew the answer. "You didn't follow procedure. You followed your bias. You profiled her. You harassed her. You put your hands on her. And you did all of this in front of witnesses, in front of cameras, with no evidence." Tom glanced around nervously. Dozens of people had gathered by now, some filming on their phones, some simply watching in stunned silence. His legs felt weak. His authority, his confidence, all of it was crumbling beneath the weight of his mistake. "Effective immediately. You are suspended pending a full investigation," Commissioner Daniels announced firmly.
Your supervisor will collect your badge and your firearm." Tom's eyes widened. "Sir, please, this is all a misunderstanding." "The only misunderstanding here was your belief that you could get away with this. My daughter is not your victim today. But how many other kids like her didn't have a parent who could show up and stop you?" Tom's shoulders sagged, his radio hanging limp at his side. "Take off your badge," the commissioner ordered. Tom hesitated, but eventually unclipped the badge from his chest and handed it over, his hands trembling. "You can collect your things and leave. Someone from Internal Affairs will be in contact with you by morning." Tom's face flushed with shame. He turned and walked away, his steps heavy, each one echoing the sound of a career slipping through his fingers. The commissioner turned to Aaliyah, his voice softening. "Are you okay, sweetheart?" Aaliyah nodded slowly, tears still streaking her cheeks. "I was so scared, Dad. He didn't even give me a chance to explain. He just saw me and assumed." He wrapped his arms around her, pulling her close. "I know, and I'm so sorry you had to go through that. But you handled it with courage. You didn't panic. You didn't lose your voice." Aaliyah buried her face in his chest. "I just wanted to buy Mom a bracelet." He smiled sadly. "We'll still get it, together." They walked hand in hand toward the jewelry store, the crowd slowly parting for them once more. As they walked away, whispers rippled through the onlookers. Some were in awe of the moment they had just witnessed. Others were sobered by the reality that things like this still happened far too often. One woman, who had filmed the entire incident, lowered her phone and shook her head. "How many other kids don't get saved in time?" she murmured to herself. In another corner, a young black boy clutched his mother's hand a little tighter, eyes wide with both fear and hope. His mother squeezed his hand back, silently grateful that this time someone had shown up. But Commissioner Daniels knew this wasn't just about his daughter. He would make sure the investigation uncovered more than just Tom's misstep. He would look into other complaints, other patterns, other quiet stories that never reached his desk. Because Aaliyah had made the call, but there were countless others who didn't know who to call or didn't believe anyone would pick up. And that was the fight he would carry forward.
By Monday morning, the entire city was talking about what happened at the mall. The video of Aaliyah's arrest had gone viral overnight. News outlets picked up the story. Social media exploded with hashtags calling for justice. People were furious, not just because Aaliyah was the daughter of the police commissioner, but because the video had captured something far too familiar. A black teenager being handcuffed, humiliated, and criminalized simply for shopping. Commissioner Daniels sat in his office at police headquarters, his phone ringing non-stop. Journalists, city officials, even community leaders wanted answers. But he wasn't interested in public statements or damage control. He was interested in something deeper: accountability. He ordered a full investigation into Tom's record. It didn't take long to uncover the pattern. Tom had been reported 7 times in the last 3 years for racial profiling and aggressive behavior, especially toward young black shoppers and mall employees. Each time, the reports were quietly dismissed. There was always insufficient evidence, or the complaints were labeled as misunderstandings. No one had ever taken the accusations seriously, until now. Commissioner Daniels called in Tom's direct supervisor. "Why weren't these complaints properly investigated?" he asked, his voice calm but with an edge that made the room feel colder. The supervisor looked uncomfortable. We thought they were just isolated incidents, sir. Nothing concrete ever surfaced." "Nothing concrete," he repeated, raising an eyebrow. 7 reports, same behavior, same description. The only thing that wasn't concrete was your willingness to act." The supervisor dropped his gaze, unable to argue.
Commissioner Daniels signed off on Tom's termination papers and recommended that the mall's entire security team undergo mandatory bias and de-escalation training. But that wasn't enough for him. He requested a citywide policy review to ensure that mall security personnel, both public and private, would be held to the same standards of accountability as city police. Too often, security guards operated in a gray area where consequences rarely followed misconduct. Daniels wasn't just thinking of his daughter anymore. He was thinking of every other kid who didn't have a father with power. Meanwhile, Tom's life unraveled quickly. The morning his termination became public, he found his name plastered across news headlines and social media posts. His phone buzzed relentlessly with angry messages, interview requests, and worse, death threats. His friends stopped answering his calls. His family members distanced themselves. Even the mall banned him from the property. But what Tom couldn't escape, what haunted him most, was the video. The footage of him yanking a young girl's wrist, dumping her belongings onto the floor, ignoring her pleas, and laughing when she asked to call her father. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw her face. The fear, the shame, the tears. He tried to tell himself he didn't mean for it to go that far. He tried to convince himself he was just doing his job. But deep down, he knew the truth. He never really saw Aaliyah as a person. He only saw his own prejudice. His career was over, his reputation destroyed, his future uncertain. But for Aaliyah, life slowly began to return to normal, though she would never forget what happened. At school, some students looked at her differently, like she had suddenly become famous. Some whispered, some stared, but many came up to her with quiet words of support, even hugs. One afternoon, her best friend Nia asked, "Aaliyah, weren't you scared when he handcuffed you? I would have been shaking like crazy." Aaliyah thought for a moment before answering. "Yeah, I was scared, but I kept thinking, I have to stay calm. I have to get through this. I have to make that phone call." Nia smiled softly. "You're really brave, you know that." Aaliyah smiled back, but there was something else in her eyes now. Something sharper, something wiser. "I think I just realized, even if you do everything right, people can still judge you for something you can't control. But I also learned, when you speak up, when you don't stay silent, things can change." Later that month, Aaliyah was invited to speak at a community event about racial profiling and youth empowerment. She stood on stage, her voice steady, her story resonating with everyone in the room. No one should ever have to prove that they belong. No one should ever be treated like a suspect just because of their skin color. I was lucky because I had someone to call, but I know many others don't. That's why I'm using my voice, not just for me, but for all the kids who never got the chance. Her words echoed across the auditorium, settling into the hearts of everyone listening. From that day forward, Aaliyah became more than just a viral story. She became an advocate. She joined youth-led organizations. She started workshops in schools to teach kids how to protect their rights. She pushed her father to continue his reforms and make permanent changes in the city's policing policies. And Commissioner Daniels? He didn't stop fighting either. He introduced stricter oversight policies for security personnel and pushed legislation to address racial profiling in public spaces. He made it his mission to ensure that no other child would have to go through what his daughter endured. For Tom, the world grew quiet. He sat in his small apartment, away from the noise, away from the job he once believed gave him power. The same video that destroyed him was now being used in training seminars. Officers and security guards across the city watching his mistake as a lesson on what not to do. And every time he saw his face on that screen, he remembered the moment he realized he wasn't in control. Not anymore. Not ever again.
Months passed, but the echoes of that afternoon in the mall never fully faded. What started as an ordinary shopping trip had unraveled into a citywide reckoning, a ripple effect that touched schools, businesses, families, and police departments alike. Aaliyah's story became more than just a headline. It became a movement. Local news called it the call that changed everything. For many, it was a symbol of how deeply racial bias was woven into everyday life. For others, it was a painful reminder that power often determines whose voice is heard. But for Aaliyah, it was something more personal. It was the moment she found her own voice. At first, she had wanted to forget it all, to push the memory away like a bad dream. But as she walked the halls of her school, kids kept coming up to her. Some were black, some were Latino, some were Asian, some were simply scared. "Thank you for standing up. That could have been me. I never knew we could fight back." She realized that by telling her story, she had made others feel seen. So, Aaliyah leaned in. She attended community forums. She started a social media page called Our Voices Count, where teens shared their experiences with profiling, bullying, and injustice. What began with a few local followers quickly grew into a safe online space for hundreds of young people across the country. Her father, Commissioner Daniels, supported her at every step, but he also carried his own weight, the guilt of realizing that the system he helped lead had allowed officers like Tom to operate unchecked for too long. "How many times had I missed the signs?" he wondered late at night, staring at old complaint files stacked on his desk. He didn't want to be the kind of leader who acted only when the problem reached his own home, so he pushed harder. He implemented strict new accountability protocols, mandatory bias training for all security and police personnel, anonymous reporting systems that bypassed supervisors, allowing complaints to go directly to oversight committees, public transparency reports that detailed outcomes of investigations so no case could be buried or ignored. Some officers grumbled about the changes. Others quietly celebrated, finally feeling protected when they spoke up about misconduct within their own ranks. The commissioner also met with mall owners, corporate leaders, and school boards, urging them to revise their security policies and commit to treating every shopper, every student, every person with dignity, regardless of race. One day, as Aaliyah accompanied her father to a community event, she asked, "Do you think it's really changing, or are people just pretending now because they're scared of getting caught?" Her father thought carefully before answering. "Real change is slow, sweetheart. Some people will only change because of fear, but others will change because their eyes are finally open. And sometimes that's enough to start a shift." Aaliyah nodded, understanding that even small shifts mattered. Meanwhile, Tom's life remained in quiet collapse. The viral video continued to circulate in training rooms, classrooms, and online articles about implicit bias. His face became an example of what happens when power is misused. At first, he resented it. He blamed the system, the commissioner, the public. But slowly, over weeks spent in isolation, the truth cracked through his defensiveness. He wrote a letter to Aaliyah. He didn't know if she would ever read it. He didn't know if she would care, but he wrote it anyway. "Dear Aaliyah, I can't undo what I did that day. I can't erase the fear I caused you. I know now that I didn't see you as a person. I saw you as something to control. I was wrong. I was blind to what I had become. I'm trying to learn, not because I expect forgiveness, but because I don't want to stay the man I was. I want to be better. Thank you for showing me that my badge didn't make me powerful. My choices did." The letter sat in Aaliyah's mailbox for 2 weeks before she finally opened it. She read it once, then again. She didn't know what to feel. Part of her wanted to throw it away. Another part of her wanted to believe that people could change. She showed it to her father. "What should I do?" she asked. "You don't owe him anything," her father said gently. "But if you ever choose to respond, it should be on your own terms. Healing isn't about him. It's about you." Aaliyah folded the letter and placed it in her desk drawer. She didn't write back. Not yet. Maybe never. But she no longer carried the fear from that day. She had found her strength. She had built something beautiful from something painful.